When you think of the most well-designed cities in the world, what do you think of? Maybe you think of cities with clear and beautiful architecture and clean and organized streets that generally feel safe. In this video, we will explore the differences between the US and European built environments and how European cities have mastered the art of sustainable design while American cities have some catching up to do. First of all, cars kill. They pollute, they cause gridlock and traffic, and yet we love them because they get us from A to B safely, quickly, and conveniently. And it's not just the drivers who think this way, but apparently city planners do too.
In the US, especially newer cities like ours here, tend to be designed and oriented around automobiles.
It has long been a central concept in urban planning that streets are for cars, not humans, and that cars need to be given as much space as possible.
We've designed it around moving around by car, right? We've made it basically everything, tried to make it as easy as possible for people to drive places, and we haven't really prioritized investments in public transit and, walkability, so pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, and as a result, feel it's often not very efficient, right, comparatively to take public transit or to bike or walk places. Either, things are too spread apart, right? The public transit maybe doesn't exist. The bicycling infrastructure, isn't safe in places, right? And if people don't feel safe or it's going to take them 3 times as long, they're not going to take, public transit or bicycle.
But how did we get here? How did US cities become the way they are? To understand this, let's look at the histories of both continents. Looking back at European cities, they were typically formed around a historic center, built in the Middle Ages and before.
On average, cities in Europe the built environment tends to be older than a lot of cities, certainly than, a city like Phoenix.
In the UK, for example, there exist city centers that have been in continuous use for almost 1,000 years. What is remarkable about these old towns is their rich architectural heritage, churches, and abbeys that were constructed centuries ago and are still present and visible. If you look closely, European cities are much more compact, since they developed at a time when public transportation was not as common, as it was in the case of the US, where it was built in response to the increasing popularity of private cars. With this change came a new perspective on how our cities should look. The introduction of automobiles radically altered the way cities are built. The difference between the architecture of downtown Europe and US cities is a reflection of this change.
So I think a great example is in the US when we say, okay, we're going to update a road to add a bike lane. What do? We paint, a stripe on the side of the road. Speed limit is 45 miles per hour. There's 3 lanes of traffic, and we say, okay, great, now bicyclists go ahead. But yet somehow we see that there's not a lot of children bicycling to school on this road. We're not seeing the elderly going along at slow speeds. Why? Because it's not safe.
In the United States, people use their bicycles for less than 1% of all urban trips. The cities in the US tend to have a different look from European cities because of their cultural and ethnic diversity. The US was colonized by Englishmen, French, Spanish, and other Europeans who all brought their own architectural traditions with them. Out of this diverse collection of European architectural styles, many new American styles were created. The US also received large numbers of immigrants from Asia and Latin America and became the melting pot of cultural, ethnic, and architectural traditions, while the development of the United States took a very different route. In the US, the increasing population density of tenement buildings in the 19th century allowed for taller buildings and increasingly commercial uses around them. Over time, the business districts started growing away from the center city to the suburban areas. This practice continues to this day and contributes to creating increasingly newer urban sprawls. Urban sprawls are characterized by single-family homes built on large plots of land, with roads connecting them to other houses and to local businesses. Such urban sprawls are one of the main reasons that in the US, cars are more crucial for commuting. These urban sprawls create large distances between residential areas and commercial areas and encourage the users to purchase a private car. On the other hand, European cities are denser and more walkable than American ones. European cities like Paris, London, and Berlin look more like small villages on large streets with the presence of pedestrian-friendly boulevards that are lined with trees.
When you build safer, better bicycle infrastructure, cycling increases, right? And there have been some cases where that has been done.
For example, the Netherlands is the bicycle capital of the world. It has more bicycles than people, and it is one of the most bike-friendly countries in the world.
Typically throughout the Netherlands, you see very distinctive sort of reddish-colored pavement to indicate where bicycle lanes are. And if you're there, you sort of know, oh, okay, that's the bicycle lane because it's a different color than the street and the sidewalk.
The young and the old, the rich and the poor, everyone takes to the bike, even the Dutch royal family. And why shouldn't they enjoy one of the best things their country has to offer? In the Netherlands, 30% of all trips are on bicycles, and 7 out of 8 Dutch people over 15 years old have a bike.
If you look at the Netherlands, what do? They, on a busy, big road like that, the bicycle lane would be separated from the street, right? They'll have the sidewalk, then they'll have a bike lane, and then they'll have, for instance, street parking. And so the cars are actually acting as a buffer from the traffic and the pedestrians and the cyclists. You know, in the post-World War II era, it seemed like, cars were expanding greatly in the Netherlands, they were expanding in the US, and I think 1970s is where things really diverged. People were concerned about, the rise of cars and actually the rise of mortality as a result of cars, and particularly for children. And there was a sort of activism saying we need to make our streets and our cities safer for people. That means we need to rethink the way we design them, and really did that. And in the years since have, invested very heavily in building safe bicycling infrastructure and lowering speeds on roads to really make it so that everyone feels safe bicycling there.
There's something for everyone at Sustainable Earth. For educators, we have games, classroom activities, and teacher awards. For small businesses, we have small business awards, courses, and articles. Feeling competitive? Want to become more sustainable? Get involved with our sustainability challenges. Head on over to sustainable-earth.org and join the movement for a more sustainable Earth. Act now, build a better tomorrow.